Fans that really focus on their own team's offensive lines probably underestimate how critical that position is across the country in regards to how difficult it is to assemble a truly really good offensive line where you have few concerns. There are few units like that in the country. It's just difficult to get 7 guys together. The 5 that are on the field, 2 typically need to rotate in at some point that are that good against top-level defenses with the kind of speed that the Gators and the Canes have. So both offensive lines sure have concerns, but the concerns are more in light of the tremendous speed and athleticism and ability on the other side's front 7. The Florida offensive line, as we stick with the Gators offense, lost 141 starts from last year. So basically, since Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow left campus, this program is plummeted, except for 1 year in 2012. They were really good, still lost the Sugar Bowl, finished in the top 10 in the country. That's been their one top 10 finish in 11 years. In 10 years, 2009, they finished number 3. Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, they leave. There you go. The offensive line, the offense in general, what Dan Mullen did down the stretch last year, I looked at so many numbers, Cam, where they were as good or better down the stretch in this past season. Yardage, points, that sort of thing. They haven't had those kind of numbers since 2009. And one of the reasons was the offensive line they fixed last year. But I don't know if they fixed it permanently because they fixed it with a bunch of veterans who left with 141 starts. So this offensive line for Florida, I think Dan Mullen overall has upgraded it, but it may take another step back from what we saw last year.
Right. That's a big question mark for them. You know, the returning or the center is the only player who's returning as a starter on the offensive line. I've seen Florida fans talking about Zion Nelson, true freshman, going to start at left tackle, which again was released on today's depth chart. So that's confirmed. And Manny Diaz was directly asked about that as I've been clicking over to Twitter a little bit. So they've been talking about that. But, they're going to Florida's going to start 1, maybe 2 freshmen up front as well, even at tackle. So, losing 141 career starts off of last year's offensive line, that unit explicitly is a big ask, a big thing that they need to fill for Florida. So, getting that all together and everything, you saw the production that was accomplished and achieved by the Florida offense late in the year. 41 points back-to-back against Florida State and Michigan to end the year. And all these kind of metrics and everything. But that was also part with the offensive line doing their job to an elite level. And I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. And just like I was talking about with Miami's secondary, there has not been proof of that for Florida's offensive line. So they need to step into the fire and deal with it as well. Going up against Miami's front 7, because there's going to be pressure. That's what we do. That's that pressure upfield, creating havoc. That's what Manny Diaz's defense does. Literally, we do it better than anybody else. More tackles for loss than anybody else. Havoc rate the last 2 years has been number 1 in America. Miami's defense gets up the field and causes problems. And with an offensive line that has 4 new starters, that could be an issue for Florida's offense. That could be an issue for Felipe Franks trying to throw the ball. But it's going to be one of the key matchups on both sides. Miami's offensive line, which is retooling as well, going up against Florida's front group. I know that they run a 3-4, but you can, and that can create its own problems because who's coming, who's not. Is this end or this linebacker on the outside? Is he coming? Is he not? Things like that. And with Miami, we're just going to get upfield. We got 4 guys, and we're going to rotate. We got probably about 9 or 10 guys up on the defensive line group that we're going to rotate through just to keep fresh bodies, and they're going to keep coming. And I don't know if Florida's offensive line is going to be able to handle that. So they might well could. They maybe do step up and they have everything figured out and they come in and they perform just like, the offensive line for the what was that? The Steel Curtain in the 70s and 60s with the Steelers. That line that was just amazing. Or that 90s offensive line with the Cowboys that had all those All-Pros and all those Hall of Famers. And they just step out on Saturday in 5 days' time and they get the job done. Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. And especially in the first game when they have to communicate together, they have to adjust on the fly together, and you're dealing with some big bad dudes on the Miami side of the ball. We had to see what Florida's offensive line is going to do. And I know that Dan Mullen is going to try to scheme to hide some of their deficiencies, which any good offensive coach would do. Dan Enos is going to do the same thing for Miami's offensive line. So don't sit here and say that I'm only, talking up to one side. We're focusing on Florida's offense to start with on this, show. But they still have to deal with, the game as it goes. So there's going to be some good plays. They're going to make some plays. They're going to make some blocks. But I foresee there being some plays where they don't, because Miami always has that happen based upon the scheme, based upon the pressure and the amount of pressure and the variety of pressure, because we have guys coming from different places all the time. You get linebackers blitzing. Manny Diaz is pretty good about bringing in cornerbacks. Michael Jackson, who's moved on towards the NFL now, he was great as a cornerback blitzer. Maybe you bring Al Blaze. Maybe you bring DJ Ivy. Maybe you bring Bubba Bolden off the bench into a slot kind of a role on defense where he does something like that. So, yeah, Florida's offensive line is a major, major, major question mark for me. And obviously they're going to want to run the ball because that's what they're going to do. I think that's how they're going to be successful in this game, is running the ball and then running some play action and affecting the defense, making it move kind of against its will, on a yo-yo string, like, oh, we're coming up to stop this run. And then, there's guys open running, whatever kind of patterns behind the play action. I think that that's going to be key for them. But if they're not able to block up front and get the running game going, I don't think that that's going to be possible. So, it'll be interesting to see. But again, replacing 141 career starts is no small task. And that is what Florida faces with their offensive line.
Chris Taylor, thank you for the contribution. We will get to your question in just a second. Slim Shady Canes, thank you so much for the contribution on the Super Chat, which is open for everyone to contribute to what we do right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We appreciate Cam giving us an extra 90 minutes this week for the big game, Florida and Miami in Orlando.